You're listening to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA legends, pros and top instructors come to share their stories, insights and tips. Now, back to you, Chris.
And now back with me here on the French Lick Resort guest line is one of the top 25 instructors according to Golf Tips magazine, and one of the most wonderful people you'll meet on this planet. Certainly one of the best golf instructors you'll meet, and that is Mr. Tom Patri. Tom is also the new director of golf instruction at the Hawthorns Golf and Country Club up in Fishers, Indiana, about 5 or 6 weeks away from getting started up there. And I'm very excited he is with me tonight here on Next on the Tee. Good evening, TP. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Chris, how are you? Nice to be with you, pal.
Thank you. So, Tom, I was, as I've said to the listeners all throughout the show, blessed to be out at Augusta National yesterday. My son and I got to follow your good friend Fred Couples for part of that practice round. He was out there with Tiger and Justin Thomas, and as I told my son, if a former champion from the 50 and older group is going to come out and win at Augusta National ever, boy, it sure seems like Fred has got the opportunity to do that. He is still just as long as I feel like he ever has been. When I watched him, hit a couple of those drives, killing it off the tee. And there's just something about that course that I think brings out the best in Fred's game. But would you be shocked at all if you found out he was contending come Sunday?
Chris, I wouldn't. He does have a lot of length still, and still creates a lot of speed. It's just a day-to-day thing with Fred's back, and it's all a matter of how he feels from day to day getting up there. That's a tough walking golf course, and we're 60 now. We're not 50 anymore. We're not 40. So getting up every day and walking that golf course 4 straight days, including practice rounds, so 6 straight days, takes its toll. We've seen him the last couple of years play really well the first 2 rounds, but not be able to sustain it through rounds 3 and 4. So it wouldn't surprise me. It just depends on how good he's feeling going into the week.
And Tom, to that end, right, we've seen Bernard Longer contend back in 2016, was actually in the second to last group on Sunday in 2016. We saw Jack Nicklaus finish tied for 6th in 1998 when he was 58 years old. And to your point, Fred is tied 18th in 2017, tied 38th last year. So what is it you think about Augusta National that seems to revitalize guys when they're 50 and beyond? Is it just knowledge of the golf course? Is it a confidence feeling they think that comes back over them? Why do you think the past champions are still able to contend once they get into their 50s?
Chris, I can't speak to Langer or to Jack, but I can speak to Freddie because, we've talked about it a lot. There are certain places that just fit your eye as a player. I mean, he's always played and liked to play well at Riviera. He's always played well at Augusta. There are certain courses that just fit your eye, and that's a place he's always loved to play. He loved it the first time he went there and talked about it. And has always talked about it religiously. It's a place that he really enjoys. The sight lines are good. He feels comfortable off the tee there. And even through his career, as he's putted somewhat suspiciously, he's always seemed to roll it pretty good at Augusta. So it's just a place he's very comfortable at. Langer's a different cat. I mean, it's almost like he's from a different planet. He's so fit at his age. That didn't surprise me, his finish there at all. But Freddie loves Augusta. And no, it wouldn't surprise me if he played well. I just worry about him from day to day as far as conditioning and how he holds up.
And Tom, considering your friendship with Fred, and we've talked at different points about the time you've spent with Seve Ballesteros, whether it was working with him or just a friendship that you've had with him over the years, but Are those your favorite? Are 92, going back to 80 and 83 with Seve, are those your favorite Masters memories, or do you have others?
Well, I mean, the Masters is something that if you're a golf fan, is something that's very special to anybody that really loves and is passionate for the game. So anybody that studies that tournament and its history, and I've always done that as a player and as a teacher, it's always something that's been very dear to me. I think it's my favorite golf tournament to watch and to look forward to every year. And so many great things happened there. The Saracen double eagle, Kenny Ventura almost winning as an amateur, Floyd's victory there, Faldo and the Norman meltdown. You can go on. There's so many great storylines at Augusta. But certainly Seve's victories there are very dear to me, because of what he meant to me and how he treated me as a professional, and then Freddie being such a close friend, that victory is certainly special too. But, how many storylines? I mean, it just seems like every year the back nine of Augusta on Sunday writes another storyline. It's just endless.
And Tom, as I'm sure you're aware, Augusta National bought up more land. They've lengthened the par 4 fifth hole. Now it's 495 yards, and they're going to lengthen the par 5 13th hole at some point because they bought land, at the adjacent Augusta Country Club right behind the 13th tee. But is it getting silly now, Tom? With how far they're having to make these, and the length of these par 4s. Do we really at some point got to start looking at, getting the manufacturers together and say, we either got to have bifurcation for the pros or we got to do something to roll the golf ball back, because there's only so much land you can continue to buy up and how far you can make these golf holes be. It's just starting to feel like it's silly to me now.
Yeah, because I don't think you'll see the golf ball get rolled back. I just think at some point it'll be a situation where you have a lower winning score. I mean, I personally kind of miss the really low scoring we used to see at Augusta on the back nine on Sunday. They've made 11 so hard. They've made the tee shot at 18 is compared to what it used to be, is so penal and so long and so difficult and so tight. You talk about the length of 5 now. I mean, you stand on the back of 5 tee now, and it's a monster. So, I mean, I think that, we've gone as far as we can. You're going to be landlocked at some point there. And I don't think the golf ball is going to change. So I think that what's going to happen is, the golf course is going to level out to a winning score, and not, truthfully, not as exciting as it used to be. I mean, you used to see so many crazy things going on at Augusta coming down the stretch on Sunday. You don't see as many fireworks as you used to see. And quite frankly, I kind of miss that. They planted those trees on the right side of 11. The tee shot of 11 is so hard to get in play now. When they lengthen 13, it'll change the hole dramatically. And then, like you said, number 5, and again, they continue to do it at 18 too. So, I mean, it's a different golf course. I'm not sure it's really good viewing anymore, or not as good as it used to be. I personally liked it when it was a little bit more exciting and birdies and eagles were more the norm.
Tom, I want to switch gears a little bit. I got to get some more pointers from you. I got my buddy's trip coming up here in a couple of weeks, and one of the things that I've learned from watching some of your videos and reading some of your articles in Golf Tips magazine is on the shorter chip shots, pitch shots, 30, 50 yards, and I know, you feed into my head short game. But one of the things that I've learned is more getting my feet more narrow on those shots. I've been typically same stance regardless of what club I have in my hand, and it seems like I'd be better off on those shorter shots having a more narrow stance. Talk about why that's important.
Chris, how many guys are going on your guys' trip coming up in a couple of weeks?
Just a handful. We've got 5 guys.
5 guys. So I get $250 an hour. So if you guys would divvy that up 5 ways and send me a check, I can give you some more tips.
Wow. Okay.
No. So short, the great Harvey Penick said, little shot, little setup, big shot, big setup. So I think a lot of people come to us hitting short shots with their feet too wide, with them holding the club too long on the grip. I got to spend some time a number of years ago with Raymond Floyd, who arguably, besides Seve, probably had the best short game in the last 20 years, and certainly the best pitcher and chipper of the golf ball in the last 20 years. And Ray and Seve both believed on, gripping down the club almost to the steel. And if you look at Raymond chipping the golf ball, pitching the golf ball, his feet and his heels were almost touching each other. So that goes right back to, like I said, what Harvey Penick said, big swing, big setup, little swing, little setup, and controlling the golf club, and controlling the use of your body during that shot and minimizing your body movement. So yeah, I'd like to see your feet closer together. I'd like to see you choke down on the golf club. I'd like you to learn to control the face a little bit better.
Does that start to get progressively wider as you get back through the bag? So if I'm almost heels touching on, say, a 30, 40 yard kind of pitch shot, is there a certain distance you want them apart?
I wouldn't say 30 or 40-yard pitch shot, heels touching. I'd say, more greenside pitching and chipping, and then as you move away, progressively it would get a little wider, certainly, yes.
Okay. Now talk about hands, and you talked about almost down, and the close shots, almost down to the steel of the shaft. But, are you a hands neutral? Do you like to see the hands more ahead of the golf ball? Where should we have our hands on these shots?
It's funny, Chris, you said it. I just had a short game lesson with a player yesterday at the club, and we talked about hitting different kinds of greenside and progressively pitch shots away from the green. And I said to him, my two favorite teachers of short game in 2019 in my industry are Dr. Trial and Mr. Error. So you've got to get out there and hit some shots. Yeah, and experiment with, how long you hold the club, where you play the ball in your stance, depending on what you're trying to do with the golf ball. Certainly if you want to fight the golf ball lower and make it run a little bit more, it's going to be back in your stance a little bit more, and your hands are going to be a little bit more forward. You're going to get the golf ball up in the air a little bit more. It's more centered in your stance, and your hands are a little bit more neutral. And again, all that's based on club selection as well. So I think there are different combinations of how long you hold the club, where you put the ball between your feet, what size swing you make, what club you take out of the golf bag in terms of the loft you select. There are a lot of factors that go into hitting different types of golf shots. And I don't think people, very unlike Seve and Raymond, are very creative around the greens. And I think good short game players are highly creative.
And Tom, for most of us that let's say, we've got an 8 a.m. tee time in the morning. We come flying into the parking lot at, 7:45. We run into the clubhouse, we pay, and then we're grabbing our bag and we're running off to the first tee. But from your perspective, what should how should we be preparing ourselves for an 8 o'clock tee time? What time should we be arriving? How much time should we be spending out on the range, on the practice green, all of that sort of thing? What should that time frame look like for us to be ready for an 8 o'clock tee time?
Well, I think, Chris, that's pretty individual. I mean, I personally, I need at least an hour to feel prepared in terms of being ready to hit a golf shot on the first tee and feeling like I have a chance. In terms of getting there, stretching a little bit, hitting some short shots around the green, hitting some putts, moving progressively away from the green, and hitting some shots on a range from a short iron, working through my bag into my driver, and I mean enough shots where I feel comfortable. And I'm not trying to solve any problems during warm-up. I'm just trying to warm up and feel comfortable with my body and being loose enough to feel like I can make a swing off the first tee and be fairly aggressive and make solid contact and feel balanced. So I think that's an individual thing, but I don't know anybody that's any good with some rare exceptions that doesn't spend an hour or more getting ready. So if it means getting out of bed a little earlier and getting to play golf at a higher level, I think you need to do that. And if you're not willing to do that, you probably have to expect that you're going to have some rough starts off the first tee.
And Tom, to that end, right, you mentioned getting out there, and there's dew on the ground now. We're out on the golf course, but it's still early and that sort of thing. Is there, from a weather perspective, what impact does that have for you on club selection? Are you thinking, all right, well, it's the sun's just coming up here. We got dew on the ground. The ball isn't going to travel as far. How should we be really starting to calculate in our minds what we should be hitting from a club selection perspective early in the morning?
That's a really good Florida question right now, Chris. We're going through a time here in Florida right now where the humidity is going up, the air is getting a little heavier. We do have more dew on the ground during the day, so the fairways aren't as firm and as fast. The air is heavier, and that certainly affects your club selection. Certainly later on in the day when it gets a little warmer and things dry out a little bit, your conditions change. So I think it's a factor, but again, I think that's a little bit individual based on the amount of speed you create in your golf swing and what your normal yardages are. But for me, it's those early morning tee times and those kind of conditions you're talking about with the humidity and the dew could be as much as a half of a club. So I think you need to be aware of that also.
And what impact do you think it has on the greens? I know you've pounded into my head about hey, leave the clubs at home for a week or two, go out and just practice your putting, and that's a great way to cut down strokes. But is there a dew impact on the greens that we need to also be calculating into our heads? Does that slow it down? How much does it slow it down?
I think that depends on the club you're playing at and the maintenance practices, Chris. I mean, if you're playing at a pretty high-end country club where there's a lot of maintenance done before the first golfer hits off the first tee, and the greens are the greens are cut and they're rolled and there's no dew on the green, there'll be minimum impact. If you're playing at a public golf course where maybe those conditions aren't quite the same, you got to pay attention to that. But certainly, if you're playing at that public golf course, you're gonna find that same condition on the practice putting green before you go to the first tee, and you should have paid attention to that during your warm up, because those conditions probably exist there as well as on the first green when you arrive at it.
So, Tom, just a couple more here before we let you go. And as we sort of work back through our regiment for getting prepared to play around the golf, are you a pitching wedge back up through to driver? How should we be going through our bags out on the practice tee to get dialed in?
Yeah, I've always worked from short to long, Chris. So I try to alternate odds and evens. So for example, on a Monday, I'd go pitching wedge 8-iron, 6-iron, 4-iron, hybrid fairway with driver. And then on the next day, I would go pitching wedge 9-iron, 7-iron, 5-iron, 3-iron, hybrid, 3 with driver. So, over the course of 2 days, I try to touch every club in my golf bag, and there are no favorites. But, I'm certainly working from short to long, and I'm moving through the set gradually as I feel like my golf swing is getting a little more responsive and a little more loose during my warm-up.
Tom, you've written so many great articles for the magazine. I'm just curious to get what we could start to look forward to. What are some of the new things coming out that you're writing about for Golf Tips magazine?
Well, Chris, more so than just me writing about them, Vic Williams, the editor at Golf Tips, has kind of resurrected that magazine, which was, for all intents and purposes, a couple of years ago, dead and buried. And he's done a wonderful job with it. And I've been very fortunate enough to be asked by them to be on their selection committee for their top 25 list. And if you look at that list really carefully, and the viewers can go to golftipsmagazine.com and check it out, the 25 people we put together there are really, really talented and each have a hell of a resume. So there's a lot of good things coming down the pike there in all areas of the game, from short game to full swing to new technologies to club fitting to how to practice, how to play, playing lesson type situations. It's all being covered this year. So I would really suggest anybody out there who hasn't seen that magazine and the revival of that magazine, get involved with it and check it out, both on their newsstand and in the online presence it's developing as well. Vic's done a wonderful job with that, and we're very proud of it.
Tom, let our listeners know how they can stay up to date with all the great advice that you have, whether it's online or it's on social media.
Chris, thank you. Certainly at the website at tompatri.com, and then all the social media platforms, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn, or the 2 Facebook pages are all available. And I can also go to my website and subscribe to the newsletter, which comes out quarterly, my TP Golf newsletter. So any of those venues are available to the listeners.
And Tom, I can't let you go before I get a winner from you. Who do you think is going to be on top of the leaderboard come Sunday evening?
My short list would certainly include Tiger. I think Rory's really peaking at the right time. I love what Fleetwood's done and his body of work. And my dark horse, and it's not really a dark horse, but the guy I really want to see play well, and I think might just do it, and it is a dark horse by probably most people's standards at Augusta, is Francesco Molinari.
Wow. I mean, yeah, if Molinari's a dark horse, a guy that just recently won and won a major last year and had such a great year, that's saying something. Because I tell you what, I got him in my foursome. I think that guy's got a great chance of winning.
It's funny, Chris. People talk about Brooks Koepka not getting any respect, but if you look at Molinari's body of work in the last 36 months, I don't think he's gotten his due at all. And they say he's not long enough for Augusta. I'm not sure about that. They said Zach Johnson wasn't long enough either. So
right.
I would watch him carefully.
Agreed. TP, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. Look forward to catching up with you again real soon, my friend. In between now and then, all the best to you and your family.
Chris, I appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
See you, TP. That's the great Tom Patri, Patri, at Tom Patri on Twitter. All kinds of great stuff. TomPatri.com. His website's fantastic. A lot of really good videos, a lot of great advice, and great articles out there on Golf Tips magazine as well.